let's go ahead and go back over to Glide, and we will recreate this home page right here. So I'm going to go over to Apps. I'm going to go ahead and create a new app now. Now that my file has been created, Reimbursement Tracker, I'm just going to double click on it. Now we are connecting our app to our Google Sheet. Now, when you're at this section, let's just kind of go through the different pieces here. We have our navigation, and you can see it's showing home and it's showing chat. We have our screens area. The screens lets you edit the current screen that you are on. Currently, we are on the home screen. You can see it's labeled up here as home. So you can do things such as drag your different components that you want to add. This is where we're going to add our image and our title and then the button for the form. We can do all of that in the screens area. You can see we have these different styles of layout. We have our layout, we have our components that show down here. You hover over it and the little green dot appears. You can add a new component right here, just clicking this, and you can choose from all of these different components. And there's tons of stuff here. So we'll go over several of these, and they're adding new ones all of the time. You can see the check box is new, the form button is new, the progress bar is new. They have a new date style that you can do for your picker. So that is the screen section, and this is where you'll spend probably most of your time. You also have the settings section. The setting is where you can change your app icon that goes on your home screen. So with Glide apps, even using the free plan that they have, you can actually get a very similar to an app feel, and that's the whole benefit of using Glide. You can add it to your phone very easily. They have a way you literally just click share and then scroll over to add to home screen, and it looks just like any other app on your phone. So this is where you can change your icon, you can change the background color. So I will do something like, I'll do similar to what we did with our recharge program. We had a little kind of electricity or an outlet plug symbol, and then I'll just give it a color. We'll just go blue right here. So I can change the color, and then I can also change the theme. They have the light theme, they have a dark theme. I'll just choose that. They have a bold theme, which is pretty cool if you want a little pop of color to show up. They have a pure black, which is actually really sharp in some apps that you build. And they have a pure white as well. So for this one, let's just go with the bold. That gives us a little bit of color here. I've used several of these themes for different apps. Bold is a really great one. I like the pure white one. I like the pure black one. They're really good. So we can also make sure we have the right name. I'm going to go ahead and just capitalize the reimbursement part here for our reimbursement tracker. You can put your alter name that you want to show up on the page where people actually use this app. This app that we're creating really is more for internal uses. Obviously, you can create something that's a little more public as well. But this one is for public use, or private use really, just for our internal team. Now this is where you want to name your app URL. So when people go to download this, you can give them something like reimbursement.glide, and that's where they would go to download it and install it on their phone. The next thing you want to do, and description, app URL, they're not huge things unless this is some type of public thing that you want to share with lots of people, but it's always nice just to finish it off with a short description that describes what this does. So this is going to be just something that just describes what we're doing here. So I'm going to put submit your receipts and get reimbursed. So we'll just do that for now. And the next decision that you are going to have to make is down here where you see where it says sign in. Now, Glide gives you several different options here for your sign in method. We have a public method, which basically means anybody and everybody can access the app, and just use it without any type of login, with any type of password. and yeah, it's just accessible. So these are good for apps that you don't really want to know who's using it. You don't want to see the emails that are logging in. There's no like personalization to it. It's basically just informational, and there's no reason for you to block it, so or password protect it. And there's lots of good reasons to use public. You also have public with email. So public with email is really good if you want to have public access, but you also want to have a little bit of personalization. Glide gives you the ability to do similar to what we did with the My Receipts section. I don't know if you can see on my phone here, but you can have the only things that show to a particular user. And for example, if I was submitting my receipt for my massage, I wouldn't necessarily want the whole team or everybody in the world to know that I went and got a massage or something like that. And you wouldn't want them to know how much it was and all the information that's on your receipts. So that is something you would want to only show my receipts to just me. And that's something you can do with the sign in public with email. Password is a very basic password. We could just type in, this is just for very light purposes. Maybe it's just a private app that you want to share with a couple people on your team, or maybe you're sending it to a client for review, or you want to make it private before you release it to the public. So this is a great method to use for those particular cases. And you just choose it and you type in the password, and then you just manually share that password with everybody that you want to use the app. All right, the other one is going to be email whitelist. This was a great one. This is the one I actually use when I'm sharing or using it with my team. And the way that this works is you create a new tab or new sheet inside of your document. And I'm just going to call it whitelist. And the only part of this that you really need is the email address. So I'll just put email here, and then you literally just go down and you put all of the different emails that you want to be able to access this. And these are the only people that are allowed to sign in. Glide, you connect it to that particular sheet. So I'm going to go over here and hit reload sheet. And you can see whitelist shows up on our navigation, which we will deal with in a little bit. But also you can choose whitelist from our dropdown. It says allowed emails are in sheet. And we just click whitelist. And now anytime you want to add somebody else to this, you just go and just add a new email address on another line. All right. And that is the settings area. So this is a very important area as well. And then we just used the reload sheet. Anytime you add data and you just want to manually reload it to make sure that Glide gets it and has access to it, you'll use that. And then you have a couple of things here: share the app, open the app, and the documentation. Documentation is great for reference in case you want to learn more about each component and about just more advanced things that you can do with Glide. All right, so let's go back up to our navigation and let's deal with this whitelist. We really don't want the whitelist to show up in our app because that's just like a hidden thing that we want to work in the background. So let's go and remove the whitelist. And the way to do that is we click on our navigation and we go over and we literally just click this little visibility icon here and it goes away. And another thing that you can do is you can actually change the name of your tabs and you can change the icon that shows up. So for submit receipt, let me see if there's anything with like a plus button. I can do a plus circle, a plus square. I'm going to just use this little thing right here. You'll notice nothing shows up now, and that's because we only have one item in our navigation. As we add more, if we add more than one, for example, the chat, you can see that icon will show up and the name of it will show up as well. So instead of home, I'm going to call this submit receipt. And yeah, and then we're good to go. Now, I don't really need the chat for this particular app, but just to show you what it is, you can have just a general chat feature here, and users can go in. They'll need to be able to sign in so you won't have a lot of spam. That's the way they protect against spam, one of the ways. But they can go and they can actually enter their name and email address, and they can just start just a string of chats, which is pretty cool for some apps. All right, so now that we have our home screen set up, let's go and actually go to the screens section here, and we are going to configure this so that it looks similar to or what it's supposed to look like from our example app that we were referencing. And so the first thing we want to do is look at our components. Right here we have the title component. If I click on it, that will give me more details. You can hit the X to get rid of it, or you can click into it and it actually will show you some different settings on how to configure this particular component. We have the title, and when you click on each of these, so if I click on the title, it's going to ask me which column do I want to use for my title, and it'll say title or image. So in this case I want to use the title as the title, and then for our details it asks, what do we want to do with our details here. And for this one we don't really have any details, we only have a title and an image, so I'm just going to click the little blank to get rid of that. And for the image, it asks, what column do we want to use for the image? In this case I want to use the image column. It says image is URL, and it loads it in. So this is one way to do it. This is a particular component called title. Now our case, that actually looks pretty nice, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I want a little more control over each of these elements. This is just all kind of shoved into one of these elements, and I want to have these as separate elements. So let me show you how you can do this. So let's go back out here. And another thing that you'll notice is we have selected the details view, and it was selected by default because we only had one entry in our home screen. So when you have one entry, and you're only going to have one entry, then a lot of times it will default to the detail setting. And we'll talk about the list view and these other views later, but basically what happens is as you have more entries, you may want like a list view that shows all of the different entries on the same screen that you can scroll through. So imagine like having a gallery or something like that. You could have, the title of the image and the image URL, and you have multiple images, and you would want to be able to scroll through them all. That's where the list view comes into place. But since we only have one item here, we will use the detail view here. And you just want to make sure that is selected. So let's go ahead and get rid of this component here. Hit the X, and let's add a new component. So I'll go to the top right and hit the plus symbol, and then I want to add just some basic text. It should be fine. We also have rich text you can do a lot with. So let's start out with some basic text, and it's going to ask me where I want this to come from. Let's do title. So we have submit your receipt. And for the action, I'm just going to do no action right here. And then I want to get rid of the label. And there we go. So we just have something that says submit your receipt. And that's good for now. So let's go back over here. And we're going to go to add a new component. And this one, we're going to add an image. So I'm going to scroll down to the media section here and click image. It's worth 1,000 words. And you can see now we have two distinct blocks of components that we can work with. Now here, for our design, we can choose different image heights, like a small image, medium, a large. You can actually do a 1-to-1 ratio here, which is probably the original size of the image. It tries to fit it all in, I believe. But let's just go with the large. The large works great for what we need. We have this fill the area. Or you can try to show the whole image. If it's important to see the entire image, if it's some type of gallery, then you may want to use that. In our case, it's just kind of it just creates a mood. It's just a background image. And then style, you can do edge to edge or inset, where inset just adds a little white around it, or the background around it. So let's do edge to edge action. We don't really want to do anything, but a good thing to note about this is you can actually open a form. You can link to a screen using images. These are really cool we're not going to really use these in this app, but you can link to screen, and it will actually let you click on this image and link to a different screen. So if you wanted to get rid of your bottom navigation, you could actually have your own navigation made up of images, and every time you when you click on the image, you could create your own custom images that said like submit receipt, my receipts, totals, or something like that, and you can actually just use the images to click on those, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's go back now out of this particular edit screen for the component, and we'll go to our components layout area here, and I want to drag the image above the text, just like that. And then the next thing I want to do is to add a button down here that says submit your receipt as well. So we're going to click on the plus symbol here, and we want to add a button that links to a form. So I think if you go here, they actually have something that's called a form button. Open a form screen. This is what we want to use here. So let's click on this. It literally creates the button for you. It already is the same color that you need. We just give it a label here of submit your receipt. And you can show it as, you know, some different styles depending on what you want. In our case, this looks fine. And then we're going to open up a form, and you can give the form a title. So for our title of our form, we're going to make it say submit your receipt, just like that. The form action, you know, that's what we want it to do, is link to a form. Now when you click this form, now we are on the edit screen for the actual form itself. So this will, the things that we need to do here are decide what do we want to include on our form, where do we want all of the details that are on the form to go. So step one is we actually need to create a new sheet in our document that holds all of this data.